I've just gotten to know Albert LeBeau this past May. I traveled with some of our staff and volunteers up to Effigy Mounds National Monument. What we've been trying to do is, as we've been talking about this today, is really reaching out and trying to make as many connections as we can to different tribal groups in the area, tribal groups that trace a portion or a piece of their heritage to this region. As Alika so appropriately reminded us, this has been a dynamic, fluid movement of people across this landscape for a long time. So there are many tribes that trace a part of their heritage to the upper Mississippi River driftless area, which we're in the southern portion of. And so as I talked with more and more people, they said, you really need to go and talk with Jim Nepstedt, Superintendent of Effigy Mounds National Park, and Albert LeBeau. There will be great resources for you as you're thinking about who do you need to reach out to and how do you reach out to them. So this past May, we spent about a half a day with Albert and Jim at Effigy Mounds National Monument near McGregor, Iowa. And it was then that we realized we really would like to have Albert here speaking to you and sharing what he's doing there at Effigy Mounds, but also what he's done as a cultural historic preservation employee for the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe, which he is a member of. So Albert graduated from University of South Dakota with a BA in anthropology and a minor in earth sciences. He was then hired by his tribe in the Office of Historic Preservation as an archaeologist. From there, he left and started working with the National Park Service, and in 2013, he was transferred to Effigy Mounds, where today he manages the park's collections and compliance with federal preservation laws. His position there is Cultural Resource Program Manager for Effigy Mounds National Monument, and I want you to join me in welcoming Albert LeBeau III. Thank you, Albert.
Medaki api pasa mialo opilatanka beti wastelo. Good afternoon. My name is Albert LeBeau III. I am an enrolled member of the Cheyenne River Sioux tribe of the Hunkpapa, the Ohe-Numpa, and the Sanzark bands that currently live on that particular reservation. This is who I am. In a nutshell, in Native America, this is how we introduce ourselves. We introduce ourselves by our family. And so this is how I introduce myself wherever I go. I do have Lakota and Dakota ancestry. I'm a direct descendant of the Standing Bear and Little Thunder Piocheways. Unlike the woodland tribes, where they have clans, like the Bear Clan and Waterbuster Clan or whatever, we have Piocheways, which are family groups, extended family groups. I'm actually named after my great-grandfather, who was the chairman of our tribe in the 1940s. My grandmother was tribal secretary. My mother was a tribal councilwoman when I was in utero, so I basically sat on council for 6 months. And my father was the first on our reservation in our tribe to receive his postbachelor degree. He was actually the first to receive his doctorate degree. So which means I was a college brat. Growing up, following my dad and and my mom in their education pursuits. I show this picture because one, it's a cute picture of me. But two, this is my great-grandfather. Not the chairman, this is on my mother's side. I show this picture to show the duality of Indian country. This man pushed cows for the turkey track on a ranch out of Texas and New Mexico, up to and from South Dakota when he was a younger man. He was a cowboy. He was a real cowboy. And it was the duality and the assimilation and the survivability of this person that allowed me to be here. Education-wise, I graduated in '94 from a BIA school, which is Bureau of Indian Affairs school. Went to the University of South Dakota, which, by the way, where I was born. My parents were in school when I was born there. And then in 2007, I decided to leave the tribe and go to the University of Nebraska and to pursue my master's degree. And everybody says, when are you going after your doctorate degree? Never. Master's degree, dang near killed me, I'm good. I meet the Secretary of Interior standards, I'm good. The other thing you'll know about me is I like to joke around, I like to have humor. Because humor is an important thing to me. We can't laugh at ourselves, we can't laugh at situations or not having fun. What's the point? I mentioned the Stenzer family. This is my great grandfather, and this is my great grandfather. This was taken at the Carlisle Indian School. It's part of boarding school. And my family are survivors of boarding schools. If you don't know what happened at boarding schools, there's a whole slew of history out there that you can read about. I won't go into it. Just know that you weren't good. You were all right. I show this picture because it's really cool, but this lady's my great-grandmother. This picture was taken in Mississippi before they went down to Cuba for the Spanish-American War. They were nurses there. Accurately, all four of them. She's buried in Havana. She died of cholera. And so I had a friend who would and say, hey, when you get down there, go to this place, and take a picture of her gravestone for me, because that's my grandma. Well, I took the picture, but at the time, Castro was still alive, and they confiscated his camera, so I don't have a picture of it. But it's worth a try. So my jobs, archaeologist, I started in 1996, and I'm still an archaeologist. Travel Preservation Officer for the Hanover Tribe from 2004 to 2009. I started with Daviess in 2007, and I'm currently at Surrounds National Monument. So, the thing about the Jeff Daviess Conservation Foundation was, in all my jobs since I've been doing preservation and preservation work, this was the first nonprofit, community-based organization to come and ask the Park Service, how do we consult? How do we reach out to these people? To the people that know more about the stuff that we don't, which, is an amazing thing for me here. Because it's the admission that we don't know it all, but we want to be able to tell the story and tell the story correctly. And so, that was one of the reasons I'm here today. And so my presentation is going to talk about consultation and some of the reasons why we consult. And I'm gonna go through it kind of fast. And if you guys need more information, I got laws for you can read. There's a lot of laws. But in general, why do we consult? So, to gather information, you have these sites that you are responsible for now, and you want to know more about the information. Well, who do you go to talk to? You talk to people that have the information. You invite them to come over and have coffee or whatnot. Well, as with anything that you want more information. To better understand the resources. Well, why did they build these things here? That's a question I'm still trying to figure out at Jim Allen's. Why did they build them there? We may never know the answer. And we're okay with that. The simple fact of the matter is that they built them. But there's questions we can ponder, and we can ask our tribal partners, and they either tell us or they won't. And we're okay with that. And then to appreciate the past. I mean, the information that you gather will be the information that will enhance your understanding of your world view. And that's what's really amazing about the stuff that I get to do. Because I get to look at this stuff and go, I didn't know that. This is really interesting. I can look at a projectile point, and I'm a prehistoric archaeologist. I like rocks. And so I can look at the projectile point and tell you what it looked like before it was that final thing, based on the flake starting. To me, it's very nerdy, but it's very interesting. I have a coworker who's the same way with pottery. She can look at pottery and tell me the life history of a grain of sand. I don't understand pottery. From a Plains tribe, we didn't really have pottery. Tended to break when you're on horseback. So besides just the general I want to know stuff, we got legalese. And there's always going to be legalese for the federal government anyway. And so we have the National Historic Preservation Act, we have the Archaeological Resources Protection Act, we have the Antiquities Act, and then, as I say, the list goes on and on. And we get into very specifics like submerged resources, historic battlefields, Civil War battlefields, historic sites in general. It can go on and on and on. But the main ones I deal with are those three. Wow, and then of course the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act. So who do you consult with? By law, me as a federal employee have to consult with the general public, tribal sovereign nations, special interest groups, and local populations. When I say local populations, I mean we have enclaves of, I think like can't even think of anything there now. New York City, where you have different boroughs, and within those boroughs you have different populations of people. That's where I'm kind of going with that. And we have to do that because the information is to gather the most information that we can, so we can tell the most complete story about the resource that we're protecting. The Park Service has been great at telling parts of the story, but we haven't been able to tell the whole story. Excuse me one second. And at Effigy Mounds, we, in the process of a pendulum swing from focusing on the archaeological story only, to focusing on the cultural side only. I'm an archaeologist. I'm also a Native American, which makes me a walking, talking oxymoron. Or just a moron. Who does this? But my goal is to find that sweet spot. Don't let the pendulum swing all the way up on one side or the other. To tell both sides of the story and to tell it correctly. And be honest with it. How many of you have heard about the issues that have happened at Effigy Mounds in the past, 20 years? It's part of our story now. It's part of our history. And as long as I'm there, I'm not going to let it be not talked about. What that individual did was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. He broke the trust of the American people. He broke the trust of the Park Service, and he paid the price for it. And he will continue to pay the price for it, as our channel partners have told us. If you haven't, if you don't know what I'm talking about, in 1989, one of our superintendent at the time removed 41 individuals from our collections. He separated the human remains from the artifacts, so he could keep the artifacts, because NACRA was going to go into effect. NACRA is the American Graves Repatriation, or excuse me, Graves Protection and Repatriation Act. He separated them so he could keep the stuff. He put things over bodies. Plain and simple. It was an act of racism, plain and simple. Even though he still refutes that to this day. So yeah, he served some prison time. He had to pay $109,000 in restitution. And his life is nearly over. He is an older gentleman. He's in the last stages of Alzheimer's. So that's why our partner said he is reaping what he sowed. I have no sympathy for that man, and I will. But that being said, that downer is part of our history now. And we're not going to let that not be talked about. To this day right now, our rangers who give tours bring that up on every tour, every one of our visitors. And they talk about it. This is what happened. We're open, we're honest about it. So we can tell the whole story. So the question is always, what do you guys consult on? What do you guys talk to the tribes about? Everything and anything they want to. Mainly, if we're doing something like, mowing the mounds, we talk to our federal partner before we start doing it. So we can get the information that we do it respectfully and correctly. When all this stuff happened at Effigy Mounds, they put a moratorium on us. And so the mounds were overgrown with multiflora rose, which is an awesome plant. You guys ever tried to get pull stickies out of you? Yeah, awesome. It hurt a lot to remove a lot of multiflora rose. We're talking bushes that are this tall. And thank goodness for our maintenance folks. But they said we couldn't do anything for 3 years. And then when I got there, we started going through the process again. It wasn't, because I got there in 2013, it wasn't until this year that we got the okay to use a lawnmower on the mountains. It has to be, the deck has to be a certain deck height, we had to get it especially made. And so, but it was all through consultation. It took that long for us to get to this point. And we're thankful for it. Wish it would happen a little sooner, but we're on the road to recovery. So, what the laws say is that we're going to talk about historic properties. So, the NHPA talks about properties over 15 years old. In a few more years, I'll be a historic property, so looking forward to that. And then, as ARPA is defined, it's 100 years old. A couple more years before that happens to me. So. We also look at sacred sites in traditional cultural properties, which are actually under the historic properties umbrella. And then where any of our federal funding is being used. So like if I gave money to Joe Daviess, or the Park Service gave money to Joe Daviess to do work on something through a grant or through a loan or through whatever, the federal laws don't care. Which is good in some ways and bad in others, but I'll explain that real quick. I'll explain it now. So where do we consult? Well, so we consult federal lands, obviously, because the federal law takes place. Public lands, if there's federally funded money being used. Private lands is federal if and only if there's federal money being used. And then also private lands for asked. And that's only through a support capacity. I will charge them my fee, how much it costs me to work to do to help them, because I work for the government quite lately. Kind of makes sense. So, and the resources is more important than me getting paid. Plain and simple. But we can use that as a bargaining tool for helping. You know, using my time to offset loans or to offset grants. It was as matching funds, so that's how we're able to help to assist in that. But only if we're asked and only in that support capacity. I forgot why I put this here. Oh, okay, yeah. So, as you heard this afternoon from everybody, and myself included, we are on Indian land. This has been, different areas, different people, different kinds. What was this one? You can't see this, but I'll kind of explain it to you. In general, this is from the 1824 Treaty of Paris. So up here you have Dakota, Otago, Missouri, Omaha, the Iowa, the second box. The purple is the lead mines in Galena. And the Indian, actually it's not the Prairie Michigan map, sorry. That's the Indian Lands Claims Commission map. That's right, this is information. So this portion, this pink portion here, where we're actually a part of, was specifically left out in the Indian Lands Claims Commission because of the lead. In the 1950s, because they were kind of fighting a couple of wars and dealing for a Cold War. So they didn't want Indians to have any claim to those lead mines. But sidewalks, Missouri, we're all down in this area. This little portion right here is called the neutral land. This was part of the Treaty of Prairie Machine. This is where they moved the whole chunk right here, and they moved them all into this little area, strip of land to separate the Dakota and the sidewalks from each other. So how do we do something? Well, going through historic documents like the Treaty of Prairie Machine, we were able to figure out who was in the area. And so as soon as we were able to figure out who was in the area, down the webpage, or down the interwebs, and start looking at these tribes. And do they have a KHPO program, Tribal Historic Preservation Office? What do they do? Where are they at? And we started reaching out to them. Saying, we understand that you were in this area in Rock, at least 1824. Would you like to work with us on projects? 9 times out of 10 they said yes. And we're like, oh, yay, more people. When I first got there, we did a cultural affiliation study where the NPS hired a bunch of academics to tell the Park Service when natives were at these locations. And they came up with 8 tribes. And so from about 1980 to the time I got there, 8 tribes, that's all we consulted with. Nobody else. When I got there, I started looking at it like, well, we're talking to the Lower Sioux, we're talking to Upper Sioux, and we're talking to Prairie Island, but why aren't we talking to Crow Creek? And like, I asked my boss that. I said, Jim, how come we're not talking with Crow Creek? He goes, why don't we talk to Crow Creek? I said, because they're from Minnesota. They're the ones that, minus the 38 plus 2 that were executed by President Lincoln, were moved to South Dakota. They're part of Shaka's band. So why aren't we talking, why aren't we salty with them? Because, well, because I didn't know. Well, the work was all. And so we opened it up to all the Dakotas. And so we went from our 8 tribes to 20 tribal partners. And we don't call them the tribes. We don't call them our tribes. Oh, we don't need to call them our tribes. We call them our tribal partners. And it's a lexicon shift from what is from what normal was. And when you say the tribes, or you say our tribes, you're putting a claim to a people that you have no claim to. And it's a colonial mindset, and I can go on and on about post-colonialism, blah, 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 blah. We change it. We say our tribal partners. Because without their help, I can't do my job. Plain and simple, I'm not from the region. I may be Lakota, but my people didn't build these. I know that. I know that for a fact. I need their help me protect those mountains. Then we do public meetings and outreach, like what I'm doing today. Some publications, but the most popular thing right now is social media. Doing Facebook blasts, Twitter blasts, Instagram. Especially for the younger kids, because everybody's like this all the time with their phones, like I am most of the time. Speaking of that. Okay. This is the other reason I consult, is so that the Park Service can learn the history of the United States. Because we don't know the history of the United States. This is manifest destiny. And you see the buffalo and the wild savages and all the wild beasts they push. This is the mentality that still happens today. Which leads us to the American Indian policies. I put this slide in there just so you guys can get an idea of what the government did and why that thing means so much to me. And I did it on a timeline, so bear with me. We had the Indian Wars, of course, and I always say 1492, because that's when that person who got lost and moved into an island and said, oh, look, India. And it's for Indians. Wounded Massacre was the last major battle in 1890. It was a massacre, it wasn't a battle. I won't get into that, but I have relatives buried in that hole, in that location. Indian Removal Act. You hear about the trail here, you're looking about the Cherokee, but there are actually multiple trails. Winnebago, the Cherokee, the Navajo, a lot of people were moved. The Dawes Act, which are the Homestead Acts, which the Park Service has this beautiful new park in Nebraska, the beautiful new visitor center that absolutely just like is all about the Homestead Act. It's great for the immigrants who came, but it was the death of American Indians. They don't tell that story very well, even though I tried to tell them that they did a good job. The Citizenship Act, 1924. My grandmother, who has passed away, was born in 1922 in the state of South Dakota. She was not a United States citizen when she was born. It wasn't done in 1924 because she was 2 years old. And I still have a piece of paper that says, guess what, you're a United States citizen now. And this is regardless of the 14th Amendment, I believe, natural born citizenship. IRA, not the Irish Republican Army, but the Indian Reorganization Act. This is where they moved us from the War Department to the Department of the Interior. And we actually became wards of the United States government at that point. Termination Act of 1946. We talked about that a little bit. It was determined to be unconstitutional, so they had to get rid of it, but it did a lot of damage. This is where they were playing with moving people around and things. If you took the job with the relocation people, you're basically giving up your rights as an Indian. In some cases, my grandfather was one of those. So his land and titles were all sold, so he could go work in Minneapolis. So on the LeBeau side, we have no land anymore on our reservation. ARPA, American Religious Freedom Act, 1978. I was 3 years old before we could have the right to practice our religion. And some of us still can't practice our religion. It's still illegal for some of us to practice our religion. 1990, the Patriation. We're the only population in America that has a federal law that protects our dead. Makes us feel kind of good. So why do we get treated differently? Why does the government have to deal with us differently? The fiduciary trust responsibility inherent to the American Indians and the United States government. I'll get into that just a while. Treaties, the unique knowledge that we have about plants and other stuff. Our sense of history is a lot longer than the immigrant history. And then we also have our old traditions and our own histories. What's the future of trust responsibility? The Constitution says the government is only people that deal with the tribes, whether that be through commerce or other means. So we've been using that a lot lately. Say we, but my tribe has been using that a lot lately. More words in the United States government, people will say, no, we're not. Prove it to me. I have a number tattooed on my arm. It's CRU 13317. I can go to any Bureau of Indian Affairs office, give them that number, and they can tell me who my ancestor is. They tell me where my Indian comes from. I'm pedigreed, just like my dog, and my bulls, my horses. I'm nothing more than an animal. But it's not all doom and gloom. I got close citizenship. So I tease my coworkers all the time, like, your president is doing some nefarious stuff. Now, whether it be this president or other president, I always tease them. I'm my president, I got no citizenship. It's about finding the humor in things. So this is me in a nutshell. That flag is flown at FOB Banks in Hanover province, where my sister was sustained her injuries. It's walking the line on being Indian, being an archaeologist, being Indian, being the government, working for the government, being Indian, being an educated person. And I'm going to close up real quick because I'm out of time. Oh, no, we're not. I've got 5 minutes. Yay, you did it right. 1992 was a good year for Indians. Bill Clinton signed a law that allowed us to take responsibility for our sites, which established the Tribal Resource Preservation Offices, which allows the government and special interest groups to have a point of contact. Like, hey, who do we contact? Oh, let's contact the HPO. They will know what we need to do to get help. 96, Clinton again did 13007, which is gave us access to sacred sites that we couldn't be denied access to a site to practice our religion under the American Indian Religious Freedom Act. So, accommodated access ceremony, we say use sacred sites. Avoid adversely affecting the physical integrity of such sacred sites. So, like, you can't put a visitor center on top of a mountain. Oh, wait a minute, we did that. Well, can't do it anymore. 2000 again, President Clinton. And it was also reestablished a couple years ago by President Obama. Executive Order 13175, which tells all federal agencies that we have to consult with tribes on a government-to-government basis that sovereign. They don't have to do it with states. They don't have to deal with NGOs or non-government organizations. They don't have to do it with tribes. Why? Fiduciary trust responsibility. We haven't been ethics mountains. It doesn't look like this anymore. I laugh because all this area is all tore up now because our septic system failed. That's where our septic system is in our front lawn. I was teasing the contractors. I said, can you guys shape those lines and do something? like birds, maybe little bears. They said no. So what are the benefits of consultation? You get to learn more about the site. You get to build a relationship with people who know things. You know? And you get to enjoy the site just a little bit more. Because you have knowledge that you didn't have 5 minutes ago. And it makes that place just a little bit more special. That's why I like being with you. Because sure, it's a real job. I work in National Park. I get to talk with Indian people. I get to talk with non-Indian people. I get to learn about things that interest me. I'm pretty lucky to have a job like I have. And I don't forget it. Again, humor. If you notice, nobody confused. This is the question I always get. Your captains are, no, they go to little rainbows kissing your skin. They're lie. Not gonna lie. Do you have any questions? We got about 15 minutes, so. Yeah.
This morning, there was a discussion about why we do archaeological surveys, who we do them for, should we even be doing them. And I'm curious from a Native American perspective and from your own personal perspective, your guys' beliefs in whether or not we should be doing these surveys, how far we should take them between non-invasive and invasive surveys, and what Native American cultures are still learning today about your culture through these archaeological activities.
He asked me a harder question.
I just put it plainly,
Yeah.
are you guys in favor of these type of archaeological surveys, and are you guys still learning a lot about your cultures as well through these activities?
We stopped doing physical digging of archaeological resources in our park in the 1970s. And so we're mainly a geophys park. We use non-invasive as much as possible. We use a lot of LiDAR. We use a lot of the stuff that was talked about earlier today, same types of stuff. And so even that has been a challenge with our tribal partners, to the point where, you know, some of them want some of the information, but they don't. They know what happened there. So why should, you know, why do they want us, why do I want to go find out about how this mountain was built? They know why that mountain was built. So for us to do it, it's kind of nefarious. You know, it's just like, but it's that wanting to know. So it's a hard question to answer, you know, and we deal with it, you know. We're getting ready for repatriation, and I think we'll dig the holes. But I have to do the archaeological survey first before I dig the holes, which means I got to dig the holes. Am I going to be permitted to do that? I don't know. We'll find out. Yeah.
Do you ever get involved with the schools or the cultural Indian dances or the food that Indians ate, you know, many years ago?
At our park we used to, but we moved away from a lot of that. And it was kind of like, in some ways it's really good, but in some ways it's kind of bad. It's kind of putting Indians on display in a way that wasn't very flattering. And so you had a, you know, like we had, you know, a school group come up and they would dance for a bunch of non-Indians. I'm like, I sat there going, this isn't right. But how do you do that? Well, you have your tribal partners come and say, hey, come to our celebration. You come to us and feel uncomfortable. Because you will. I mean, you will feel uncomfortable. I'm not gonna lie to you. But you come to us. And so that's why we kind of got away from that. And with the whole pan-Indianism idea and the movements that are happening, it's kind of, did the whole chunk dance northern style or southern style? Well, what's northern style, what's southern style traditional? That's something that was made up. So,
Well, I just get stuff in the mail all the time from the Lakota Indians, and they send me dream catchers and cards and show me what the children are doing in school and how they have trouble getting food to eat and that sort of thing.
that's not true. It really isn't true. No, they just want your money. Yeah. Yeah, it's not, yeah, they have money. They have lots of money, actually. And they also have lots of food. Do they use it? I don't know. They have the ability to have lots of food.
You showed a slide before with a big spiritual woman, and you said that was really important to you. Can you tell us what?
Her? Yep. That is the spirit of. I always forget to do this portrait. But anyway, it's a spirit of liberty moving across the Americas. That's Lady Liberty, the spirit of Lady Liberty, pushing the animals, the people, everything else away from her. And it's important to me because when we talk about manifest destiny, when we talk about colonization, when we talk about things that have happened to Native Americans, this is the picture that we always see. And she's white, she's blonde hair, probably blue-eyed, I can't know what that's on. I think she is blue-eyed. And, that was the mentality. And in some cases, it still is the mentality. Not in all cases, it's changing.
The Conservation Foundation wants to tell the right story about the lands that we own. How do we go about identifying the tribes that have occupied those lands or still occupy the land in this area? How do we go about that?
Historic research, look at the treaties. That's how I got a couple of the maps. Was just looking at the treaties, seeing who gave up land in the land secessions. It's a real quick Google search, really. You can actually pull up maps that show you the land secessions during the specific treaty-making periods, and you can watch groups of tribal folks being pushed out. That's one of the easiest ways. The other way is to, if whole chunks are around, contact them. Contact either chairman's office or more. I have good contact their cultural office, but and that would be a starting point. Every trip of 1,000 miles starts with one step.
We got time for 2 more questions.
Yep.
So we're real lucky here with Joe Daviess County Foundation here doing this land preservation and working with natives. And so we're kind of unique here. We get to see a lot of cooperation. You kind of add a little bit different perspective because of the government thing. So I guess my question to you is, obviously the government is starting to open up in some areas to listening to tribal groups. Is there a place that we can go online or whatever that we can maybe find out about some of the things that this national parks, national places like that, you know, that we
The North American Tribal Historic Preservation Officers Association, NAHPO, they have a website that talks about successes. And then the National Park Service, the National Preservation Fund, the National Preservation, which includes the Tribal Historic Preservation Office funding. So, yeah, those are the two off the top of my head I can think of right now.
First, in response to your question, the National Park Service has a part of their website that is additional knowledge about that, and some of their different services that they provide. There's blog posts and different scholars that have on that website, so that's a good resource if you're just interested in like what the National Park Service does. Sort of on a legal level.
Is that so?
Yeah, I think it is. It
Good.
was last year.
Yeah, because it's been removed from our lexicon, kind of like,
He didn't say that.
And then I have a question for you.
yeah.
So, in your conversations with the tribal parties that you work with, I'm curious to know if you have found that, I mean, we know that like the wood people and other like, cultures that live in thousands of years ago with sand, these landscapes with fire and in other ways. And so I was wondering if some of the like preservation techniques that you use on the mounds are pulled from that knowledge, or if it's more of a current contemporary take on it.
Unfortunately, it's more of a current contemporary take on it, and for one very specific reason. We can't use fire in the park. I would love to burn the mountains like they do at Main Mountain, because that's what was traditionally done. But we can't do that, and so we have to come up with other mechanical means to do it. One day, hopefully. But with the changes in the climate, as we're seeing with the bigger fires, a lot of Park Service resources are going to fighting those fires, and they're not being used for prescription. And so, right now we're using mechanical means. Like I said, hopefully one day we'll be able to use fire again.
All right, well, let's thank Albert.
Yeah.